In another incident, he saw men praying in this particular location. They were praying. He said, how come you're praying here? They said, Rasulullah ﷺ prayed here. He said, if it's time for salah, pray anywhere. Otherwise you leave. And then he said, what has destroyed the people before you is when they have taken the places of their anbiya as places of worship. The place where the Nabi prays or the place where a Nabi dies, they take that as a place of worship. He said that destroyed them. With the grave of Daniel. Daniel in the Bible, is a prophet that is not mentioned in the Quran and is not mentioned in Sunnah. We don't have any textual reference that Daniel is a prophet. In Arabic, referred to as Daniel. However, in the Bible, Daniel is a prophet. And there's a book of Daniel and it talks about the events of the end of time. The ahadith of fitan with the Christians are attributed to Daniel. His grave, or what the people claim to be his grave, was uncovered. And what made the Muslims think that Daniel is actually a Nabi is when they saw that the earth has not affected his body. The Muslims opened the land of Tastur in the time of Umar ibn Khattab, and that is when a flood uncovered the grave of Daniel. And they saw his body intact with no scratches at all. And we know that Rasulullah ﷺ says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ حَرَّمَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ أَن تَأْكُلَ أَجْسَادَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. Allah has prevented the earth from eating the bodies of the prophets. So they said, most likely this man was a prophet because he has died hundreds of years ago and his body is still intact. So now they have to rebury him. Umar ibn Khattab sends a letter. See, Umar is thinking about the implications of that. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu sends a letter and he said, during daytime, I want you to dig 13 graves in different areas. And then under the cover of darkness, you go and bury the body of Daniel without anybody seeing you. And you uncover and you cover up all of the graves at once. Why did Umar ibn Khattab do that? So that he would confuse the people and they would not know which one is his grave. Dig 13 graves during the daytime so the people know the locations. At night, you bury him, you cover up all of the graves, people now don't know which one is the grave of Daniel. Why? Because he didn't want that grave to be worshipped. With Khalid ibn Walid, Umar ibn Khattab, he fires Khalid ibn Walid. That's one of the first orders of Al-Khalifa. Khalid ibn Walid relinquishes all of his authorities as a military leader, and he immediately and suddenly turns into becoming a regular soldier. So the people were wondering, why did the Khalifa do that? I mean, Khalid ibn Walid was such an impressive leader. Khalid ibn Walid, dear brothers and sisters, never in his life, ever, he never lost a battle. In Islam and in Jahiliyyah. Every battle that he led, in Islam or before Islam, he won. He never lost. And he had skills, and we talked about some of these when we were talking about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. He was like a storm. And they would say, لا ينام ولا يترك أحدا ينام. He would not sleep and would not allow anybody else to sleep. He would not sleep himself, and he would not let friend or foe sleep. I mean, it was like a hurricane. And he had such swift movement from one battleground to another that he drives his enemy crazy. They try to plan, all right, Khalid ibn Walid is here, let's plan. Suddenly he's somewhere else. They plan. Suddenly he's somewhere else. So he just drove them crazy. In fact, when the Muslims were sending urgent messages to Umar al-Khattab, to Abu Bakr, to send reinforcements to them in Asham. Abu Bakr sends a letter to Khalid bin Walid, who was in Iraq, and told him, go and rescue the Muslims in Asham. Now the Romans had protections, they had garrisons all over the known routes of travel between Iraq and Asham. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu and the Muslim army show up in the middle of Asham. The Romans said, where did he come from? All of the roads are protected with garrisons. Khalid bin Walid has traveled through the desert, land which was never ever traveled before him. It was the first time ever an army has crossed that desert. And he suddenly lands right in the center of Asham, bypassing all of the Roman security points. And now Umar ibn Khattab fires him. So Umar ibn Khattab said, إني لم أعزل خالد عن سخطة ولا خيانة ولكن الناس فتنوا به فأحببت أن يعلموا أن الله هو الصانع. I did not fire Khalid ibn Walid radiyallahu anhu because I am angry with him or because of a betrayal of trust or responsibility. But the reason was that he was becoming a fitna for the people. And I wanted the people to know that it is Allah who gives victory. Khalid, people were attributing victory to the person of Khalid. It is Khalid who's making us these victories. He's the one creating them. So Umar said he was turning into a fitna for the people. They're attributing that to him when it should be attributed to Allah Azza wa Jal. So he wanted the people to know that victory comes from Allah and that victory will carry on even when somebody else assumes responsibility. And that was true. The Muslims carried on winning. Umar ibn Khattab was fighting false ideas or assumptions. He saw some men from Yemen who were traveling. And again, they are part of those people which we said, they just do nothing and they walk lazily. So he said, Umar said, who are these? They said, هؤلاء المتوكلون. These are the ones who have tawakkul on Allah. So they don't work. They just have tawakkul. They don't do any work. They have tawakkul on Allah. Umar ibn Khattab went to them with the durrah and he said, بل هم المتواكلون. They are the ones who are dependent. Mutawakkil means dependent. The mutawakkil is the one who plants his seed and then puts his trust in Allah. So you have to plant the seed first, and then after that you leave the results to Allah Azza wa Jal. Umar ibn Khattab did not want to deal with a society of bums. He wanted people to work, to be productive. A man came to Umar ibn Khattab thinking that he's delivering some good news to him. He said, we came back from Al-Mada'in. Delivering the good news to Umar ibn Khattab, he said, we opened Al-Mada'in. Al-Mada'in was the capital of Persia. He said, and we found a book that has wonderful words. They found this book and it had so much wisdom in it. Umar ibn Khattab said, أَمِنْ كِتَابِ اللَّهِ هُوَ? Are these words of wisdom from the book of Allah? He said, no. Umar ibn Khattab started beating him with the durrah. By the way, brothers, don't think that this is a huge baton or stick, cane that he's... No, it's a small stick and it's more of a symbolic thing. It's not a physical beating. It's of a symbolic nature. So he would actually tap the people. I don't want you to get the wrong impression. Also, when I talk about Umar being severe, I don't want you going around being severe with people to reenact what you think is Umar ibn Khattab. That was shiddah in the right place. That was toughness used in the right way, in the right place. Umar ibn Khattab assumed responsibility at a time when the ummah needed that. In the time of Rasulullah ﷺ, that would have been inappropriate. And that's why the personality of Rasulullah ﷺ was soft and compassionate. Because that was time of da'wah. People need to be attracted. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, if you were severe and hard-natured, people would have abandoned you. But Umar became Khalifa in time when dunya was opening up on the Muslims. So there was a potential of a huge problem. Muslims being attached to dunya and their hearts becoming greedy. So they needed somebody stern and firm to keep them on the straight path. So Umar ibn Khattab, he was tapping this man with the durra, and he was reciting the first ayat of Surah Yusuf, Alif Lam Ra, تلك آيات الكتاب المبين إنا أنزلناه قرآنا عربيا لعلكم تعقلون نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن وإن كنت من قبله لمن الغافلين. It says that this book has the clearest verses. It is a Quran in Arabic for you to have understanding, and then it says that the best of stories are in this book. So why do you have to go to another source, another book of wisdom? And then he told the man, إنما أهلك من كان قبلكم أنهم أقبلوا على كتب علمائهم وأساقفتهم وتركوا التوراة والإنجيل حتى درس وذهب ما فيهما من العلم. He said, what destroyed the nations before you is that they studied the books of their scholars and they left the Torah and Injil, the gospel, until the Torah and Injil became part of the distant past. And that's when these people perished. What is standing between you and Quran and Hadith is shaitan. That's all. I'm not saying that we shouldn't study from the scholars and learn what they say, because the scholars are needed to understand the ahkam. To know the ahkam, to derive the rulings, you would need to study under scholars. But to completely neglect Quran and Hadith, and just to go and study the opinions of scholars in fiqh, and abandon the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and abandon Hadith, is exactly what Umar ibn Khattab is saying. They followed their rabbis, they followed their priests, and they left the Torah and the Gospel. For example, today among the Jews, the Talmud is more important than the Torah. And among the Christians, for example, within the Catholics, the statements of the Pope are more important than what is in the Bible. The evidence, the dalil, the guidance, the huda is in the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla and in the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.